Oh, baby, are you in for a treat? Oh my God, this was such a good conversation and something that some of you might literally have never even heard of. I have Dr. Stephanie Venn-Watson on the show today. She goes into like her background and stuff on the show, so you could hear that in a second. But really what we are talking about on today's show is it's like not newly, it started 10 years ago, but now there's so much more research and everything going into it. This essential fatty acid, which means your body literally needs it in our bodies, called C15, that she actually discovered from working with dolphins, which is so cool. But we go into exactly what C15 is, how it's different from omegas, because omega is, other fatty acids, but they work differently in the body, how it helps fertility and pregnancy and development, brain development in children. Like, it is so fascinating. It supports gut health. Like, I'm so enamored by C15 and learning more about it. I've started learning about it, I don't know, maybe the beginning of this year, and I've heard her on different podcasts and stuff. I recently started taking their supplement. It's called Fatty 15. It's just pure C15. This is the purest supplement I've ever taken in my life. Like they go into the rigorous testing that they do, the claims that they get by third party. Like it's wild. But anyway, I started taking it about two-ish maybe months ago, before, because I knew like I wanted to have her on the podcast, but I wanted to try out the supplement in myself first. And I love it. I'm obsessed. And I talk about like what I notice on the show, so I'll save it for that. But this is, like revolutionary, this information that's coming out about C15, especially for things like metabolic health, insulin resistant, which is so huge with PCOS. They were actually able to claim, like put as a claim on their supplement, that it supports a healthy pregnancy. Not that it's just safe to take during pregnancy, that it actually supports a healthy pregnancy, which is wild. Like, it is so cool. I'm just going to let you get into the episode so you can learn all about it. Of course, we have a link in the show notes for you if you want to try out Fatty 15 with a discount code. I highly recommend. I'm getting everybody on my family on this because it's so incredible to learn about, and I can't wait for you to dive into this episode. So let's freaking get to it. Okay, Dr. Steph, I'm so excited to have you on the Mind Your Hormones podcast. I heard you on a few different podcasts over, the year, and I've heard about C15 for a little bit now, and I've been so interested in it. I recently started using it, and I know this is going to be such a good conversation because everyone listening to this could benefit from it. So in case well, first, actually, let's just start with you, like who you are, how you got into this, and then I want to just go into like what actually is C15, because a lot of people probably have never even heard of it.
Absolutely. Corinne, great to be here joining you today. And yes, so I'm Steph. I am a veterinary epidemiologist, so not your typical background, but I was all excited, right, about becoming a disease tracker, and ended up, I thought I'd be chasing, infectious diseases, and ended up really falling into this fascinating world of chronic conditions and long-term health, which has been wonderful. So lots of surprises have happened in my life, Corinne. So that's how we kind of have to go with it, with the flow. And I was ended up being recruited by the Navy 24 years ago to help continually improve the health and welfare of Navy dolphins here in San Diego, which was incredible. I thought I would be just doing that for a few years because it's San Diego and it's dolphins, and ended up being there for over 20 years. Dolphins. So the Navy. So why are we even talking about dolphins? The Navy's cared for this sustained population of about 100 bottlenose dolphins for over 60 years.
Wow.
They live in San Diego Bay, go out to the open ocean every day. Every day they choose to come back. It's really an amazing population.
Oh my gosh.
But the thing that's really cool, Corinne, is that the dolphins at the Navy, they get such good care that they live a lot longer than dolphins in the wild. So if we look at the wild, dolphins lived about 20. At the Navy, you ready for that? They're living to their 40s and 50s, with 2 dolphins turning 60.
Wow. So it's like triple the amount of time.
Yeah, exactly. So amazing. So what we learned as the dolphins were getting older that about 1 in 3 were developing aging associated diseases, things like high cholesterol and chronic inflammation,
Wow.
this thing called fatty liver disease, and even this full suite of changes consistent with Alzheimer's. And it gave us
Wow.
a chance to use this advanced technology called metabolomics to look at thousands of small molecules present in the dolphin's serum, as well as their all fish diet, to see
Mm.
which small molecules predicted the healthiest aging dolphins. And that's where we made this surprising discovery that C15, an odd chain saturated fatty acid, was the top predictor of the healthiest aging dolphins. So that's what started that
So
discovery
cool.
10 years ago. Yeah.
Wow. That's insane. Okay, so you discovered this 10 years ago. I know this, like, I feel like maybe I started. When did you come out with Fatty 15? Was it like 2 years ago or?
So that was, let's see, we launched it officially in 2021. So if you can
Okay.
believe it's
So I was
been,
like heard about it a
yeah,
couple years ago, but I was like, oh, I don't know. Like it wasn't like as like I'm hearing it way more
yeah.
now. But wow, you discovered this 10 years ago. Okay. So you discovered this and you alluded to what it is. So what exactly is C15 that you found in the dolphins? How cool
Right.
is
So exactly. So the best way to think about it is, everybody knows omega 3s, right?
Yeah.
So omega 3s are another type of fatty acid, important fatty acid in fish. So it ends up
Yeah.
being similar. That C15 is a different type of fatty acid,
Mm.
and it's called this odd chain saturated fat. It's called an odd chain because it has an odd number of carbons, 15
Oh.
carbons, which is why it's called C15. And it's a saturated fat because it has no double bonds. So compared to omega 3s, for example, omega 3s are called polyunsaturated fatty acids, and
Right.
that's because they have multiple double bonds. So they're both fatty acids, but have some important differences that help them, basically serve as a yin and yang to both protect our health.
So it does fatty 15, does like C15 in general, fatty 15 is the name of the product, but does this replace omega 3s or would you take it in addition to omega 3s?
It would be we recommend it's in addition to. So the way to think about it, is that uh, I guess we should talk about the importance of the discovery. That so
Yes.
when we made that first discovery 10 years ago, fast forward, right, 10 years, over 100 peer-reviewed studies
Wow.
on C15's health benefits since then. So it's been not just us; now the whole world's been working on C15, and it's emerged as the first essential fatty acid to be discovered in over 90 years since omega 3s. So
Wow.
we'll dive into the whole importance of it being an essential fatty acid with
Yeah.
regard to maternal health and infant health.
Yes.
But it helps us think about, it's like if we said we discovered vitamin E, we wouldn't say stop taking vitamin A. This is
Right.
like discovered a new essential fatty acid called C15,
Got
and
it.
that's complementary to the other known two essential fatty acids. One is an omega 3 and one is an omega 6.
Okay, got it. Okay, perfect. So, all right, so then let's back up and let's talk about like what the benefits are that you found of C15. And again, with the lens of, the listener is likely trying to conceive, pregnant, postpartum. So definitely want to bring some of that in here too. We could also talk about just like overall health and wellness with it. Like what are the benefits that you're seeing from C15 that might not be the same as omega 3?
Right. So as an essential fatty acid, we've been discovering, and again, lots of other researchers are finding out a lot about C15, especially in our younger years. So an essential fatty acid is a nutrient that our bodies have to have certain levels of in order to maintain our baseline health. This
Wow.
includes growing up healthy as a baby, growing up, being able to have healthy fertility. Like, we need
Mm,
all of these are nutrients our bodies need to maintain this baseline health, but our
wow.
bodies don't make enough of it. So that means that we have to get certain levels from our diet. Now, the reason why this is really significant with regard to especially people born since the 1990s is that our primary source of C15 as humans is from dairy fat.
Oh,
And
and I
as
don't
we,
have dairy.
right, that's right. And so as the generations, right, have with each generation, there's
Wow.
been a dramatic decline in the intake of dairy fat. We've also had changes in agricultural practices, and all of that has driven down population-wide levels of C15. So
Wow.
we've had this change, and so what does it do? Why do we care?
Yeah.
Um, that C15 plays a core role. Its main job is to stabilize our cell membranes against breakdown.
Wow.
So it's because it has no double bonds, it serves as like this Goldilocks fatty acid that helps our cells from breaking down, not only as we're older, but as we're discovering that if we don't have enough C15 in our cell membranes, Corinne, that it can actually accelerate our aging even when we're younger.
Wow.
So our cells become, if we don't have enough C15, our cells become more fragile. It leads to an entirely new form of cell death that was discovered by researchers at Columbia University back in 2012. And so it's led to this growing recognition of the potential of C15 deficiency syndromes, which are
Wow.
being caused by not getting enough C15 in our diet anymore. So we need it to keep our cells strong and healthy from our youngest years on.
Wow. So I would assume then like this could, if they're C15 deficient, like this could impact egg quality, because if it's going to be, impacting your cell membrane, I would assume that it would impact, egg and sperm quality probably.
Yeah, it's a really good call out. So there's a whole group of researchers that are focusing on exactly this area, which
Mm.
is they've shown that the higher the amount of C15 present and support around the oocyte and in the ovaries, the better, the healthier the ovaries. So, like for example,
Wow.
women with diminished ovarian reserve,
Yeah.
DOR, they have lower C15 compared to women who don't. And then
Wow.
separate studies have shown that the more C15 that's in the environment around the embryo, the faster that and healthier that embryo divides. And this is in studies looking at in vitro fertilization that's supporting more successful embryonic development. And then
Wow.
when we move, right, so it's like it really is essential from the earliest years on.
Yeah.
And then when we look at, later in the stage, that we know that the more C15 mom has, which, mom gets C15 from her diet. So the more C15 mom has from her diet, the more the baby gets both in the womb as well as in her breast milk.
Mm.
And multiple studies have shown that the higher the C15 that baby gets, the better their body growth, the better their brain development, and even overall cognitive development and language skills, all the way up until they've been following a cohort through 6 years old.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So this is like, everyone should be taking this, especially if you're trying to conceive pregnant postpartum. Um, so wow, this is so interesting. There's so many different like angles I could go with this too. Are there like, because I'm just thinking of like my, fertility cycle brain. Is there correlations from with C15 levels with like reproductive disorders, cramping, like anything like that, like PCOS, endometriosis, stuff like that, or there hasn't been made that correlation yet?
Yeah, so with regard, the only study I've seen to date, Corinne, is the one with diminished ovarian reserve. I haven't
Okay.
seen C15 studies like showing, for example, women with PCOS
Hmm.
having lower C15, but
It
the
can only help.
conditions, yeah, exactly, the conditions surrounding PCOS, like metabolic syndrome
Yes.
and insulin resistance, those have absolutely been tied to lower C15. And in animal studies have shown that when that C15 supplementation helps to improve insulin sensitivity,
Wow.
and it even serves as an insulin mimic. Again, these are in rodent studies and in cell line studies, not through clinical trials, but
Yeah.
supportive of why people with higher C15, just like we saw with the dolphins, people with higher C15 are less likely to develop type 2 diabetes, heart disease, fatty liver disease. So that's relevant to our older years, but just as important is looking at. So glad that there are groups looking at this earlier
Yeah.
stages, in our life.
Well, especially with PCOS, the fatty liver disease is more common with PCOS, insulin resistance, inflammation, all of that. So, Because I would say C15, is it anti-inflammatory? Like it helps reduce inflammation?
It is, and so what's been, with what we know is that it's C15 is known as a pleiotropic molecule, which means it does more than one thing. It's just a
Mm.
fancy name for that. So it does more than one thing, pleiotropic. And so it has a primary job of strengthening our cell membranes, but we have learned, as well as others through other people's research, that C15 has targets a lot of different receptors throughout our
Mm.
bodies, and things like PPAR, it activates PPARs and AMPK and AKT, and it inhibits mTOR and HDAC6. And what all that means is it plays a key role in balancing our metabolism, our immunity, by triggering and targeting these different pathways and receptors, which
Wow.
makes sense because we have these receptors throughout our body. In
Right.
most cases, those receptors are there because they're waiting for what we naturally put into our bodies, which used to be, more dairy fat and dietary driven dairy fat. So
Yeah.
it studies have shown that C15, with regard to inflammation, lowers over 18 different pro-inflammatory cytokines. Right, these are like chemicals that help. If they get too ramped up, right, then our
Yeah.
immune system becomes overreactive. We see that in PCOS. We see that with, so it helps to calm our overactive immune system down through those receptors.
Which would help autoimmune conditions as well, I would anticipate. And also like cramps and stuff, a lot of that stems from inflammation. So I'm sure this would be helpful for it. Has there been anything with autoimmune or thyroid health, or is like, all of that connected with it?
It's been the autoimmune studies have been looking at like mechanisms of action, like how it works, like exactly what you're saying, Corinne, that there are cell-based systems that are mimicking autoimmune diseases in people and showing that it has the ability to calm that
Wow.
autoimmune response. And then epidemiological studies showing that people who have higher C15 have a lower risk of some autoimmune diseases. But that core critical one in the middle, piece in the middle, which is a clinical trial, the
Right.
clinical trial haven't been done with regard to the autoimmune disease, and I haven't seen experimental studies
Hmm.
either. But
I'm
it
sure
makes
it's
sense.
coming.
I myself have atopic dermatitis, so I get
Oh.
really basically very reactive skin
Mm.
to lots of different triggers, and due to an autoimmune issue. And I have
Mhm.
found for myself that Fatty 15 has helped. It doesn't get rid of it, but it just
Yeah.
calms that response so that
Yeah.
it's tolerable for me, which is
Right.
a huge, which has been incredibly helpful.
Yeah, and I'm sure with there's a gut connection with autoimmune, and I'm sure C15 will help, support cell membranes. I'm sure it helps support the gut lining, as
Yeah,
well.
it's so funny that you said that. So yeah, so then there's a whole nother group that's been looking at gut health and C15, and in animal models, again, they've shown that C15 is exactly that. That it helps to restore the gut lining because obviously, like you're talking about, there's this issue of leaky gut
Yeah.
syndrome. And so it helps to repair the integrity of that gut lining in
Yeah.
multiple rodent models,
Wow.
showing that it helps to shore up that lining, and by doing so, it stops these irritants from getting across the gut lining and triggering that immune response, and it calms the inflammation inside the gut. Again, these are rodent studies,
Yeah.
but really encouraging with regard to understanding how C15, what is C15's role with regard to as an essential nutrient.
Yeah. And when you were saying before, dairy fat is the biggest form of like dietary C15. Are there other dietary forms of it, or none that are worth like giving you enough of it?
Well, I think there are ways, like we can basically build us a C15 healthy stack of when you add it all together, the goal is to optimize. So in general, the population in general has about, of all the fatty acids in our blood, about C15 for most people represents about 0.2%. So we don't need a lot. But
Yeah.
we need at least 0.2% to keep our cells stable. That's
Okay.
where most of us are sitting on, is right on that edge.
Okay.
People in Sardinia, for example, in the blue zone, where they live longer, they're less likely to
Yeah.
die of heart disease, their C15 levels are 0.6, so 3 times higher than
Wow.
us. So there
Okay.
are ways to get
No
there. They
shock.
eat a lot of cheese. Yeah. So their trick is they eat a lot of cheese
Okay.
that's local from their goats and sheep that eat grass at high altitudes. And
Oh, so it's goats and
study
sheep cheese, not so much cow cheese.
I think it's more what we're learning is it's more about what they eat. So if a
Okay.
cow eats grass, it has twice as much C15 in its dairy fat than a cow that eats corn.
Right.
So that's where the industry changes. So tips and tricks, right? Dairy, high quality dairy fats and whole fat has the highest amount of C15. If you go to 2%, it has half the amount of
Right.
C15, and non-fat has no C15 in it. So high quality dairy fats, cheeses in particular, studies looking at pregnant women show that for whatever reason, eating cheese during pregnancy has the greatest impact on increasing C15 levels
Wow.
in mom's blood, but also in her breast milk.
Wow.
And then when we exercise, we also release C15 from our tissues, so that increases
Oh,
C15 levels.
really?
So another reason to exercise.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, eating
Any type
organic.
of exercise, like walking, Pilates, strength, doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
exactly. So anything that's going to be pulling energy from your tissues will be pulling that C15 out to, burning the fat and
Wow.
getting that content into circulation. If you eat fiber, then our microbes can use inulin and fiber to make C15. So there are microbes in our gut. They don't make enough to get us up and over on their own. But again, it's kind of, what are
Yes.
the many things we can do?
Right.
So that's another and again, another reason to eat fiber.
High fiber. Yeah.
So those would be the things. But with regard to straight up C15 sources from food, dairy unfortunately is like our number one, two, and three
Yeah,
source
which is
for
why I'm so glad you have the supplement because I don't have dairy. A lot of people in my community don't have dairy for a lot of different reasons. So that's where Fatty 15 obviously like comes in. So you could help supplement with that, which we're definitely going to talk about that in a second. But like you were saying, it's in the breast milk and in children and stuff. Are we able to supplement C15 with children too? If they, like my daughter doesn't have dairy or whatever. I breastfed her for 2 years, but again, I don't have dairy. So, but do they like, I know you have a supplement for adults. I'm wondering what about with children?
we just went through years ago when we first launched the supplement. We went through what's called generally recognized as safe
Mm.
or GRAS status, and had gotten that for children 4 years and up when we first
Okay.
launched the supplement. We
Oh,
just went through the process because there's so much, every 2 to 3 weeks there's a new paper on C15 coming out.
wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
so it's really like burgeoning with regard to, and so we've learned a lot more since 2021. And so the science was re-reviewed by an independent panel of toxicologists, and they have concluded in our new assessment that it's safe for children when you're old enough.
Oh,
So
amazing.
yeah, so we have the ground covered with regard to mom getting C15, and she's able to get it through baby through breast milk, and then for 1 year up is that the supplement is now deemed to be safe.
Amazing. And is it still just the capsule, or do you have other options for kids?
It's a capsule right now. So what we do is
You open it.
it's a tasteless, odorless powder, which is
Okay, cool.
great. Yes, you can open the capsule and just put the
Mix it with
powder.
the.
Exactly.
Okay.
And stay tuned. Early next year, we'll have a gummy
Yay, for kids.
for both adults because this
Oh
a
yeah,
lot of
yes,
adults.
even though like this capsule is so tiny, like it's small, it's so easy to take.
Right.
Like the bottle goes a long way. Like I absolutely love it. And would it be one full capsule for children as well, or would it just be half or whatever?
Yeah, one full capsule.
Okay.
It's a great question. So when they studies that have looked at babies, it's on average it looks like babies need to get about 100, and which means babies on up,
Yeah.
of all ages, that we need on average as humans between 1 to 300 milligrams of added C15 per day.
Okay.
So that amazingly includes babies, but I think that speaks a lot to C15 appears to do a lot of heavy lifting in the early years.
Mm.
So, for example, there was, both, there have been studies on relevant models in the lab. In worms, for example, they showed that baby worms, if you don't give them any nutrients, and so what happens is they don't die, they go into like a hibernation state.
Okay.
And what this group did is they introduced individual nutrients. They no carbs, no proteins, nothing, and they introduced just C15. And by doing so, that baby worm basically started developing, came out of hibernation, and had normal neuronal development on
Wow.
C15 alone. So
Wow.
again, these are worms,
Yeah.
but again, that matches up that matches up with what we're seeing in the human studies of
Yeah.
showing better cognitive development with a higher C15.
Wow. Okay. So that's what I was going to say. So for children, there's the correlation of cognitive development with higher C15 levels.
That's right, and better body growth as well.
Wow. Okay. And so if obviously, if a mother's breastfeeding, it goes through to the child, would you suggest a mother then who is breastfeeding takes extra C15 so there's like enough for her and for baby? Or is just the one capsule good for her and baby, or how would you recommend that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think probably just sticking to it could be 1 to 2 capsules
Okay.
per day. But it's
Mhm.
a good question. Studies haven't been done to see if like you said, because again, if baby's taking the
Yeah.
C15,
They take
I
all of
think just
it. Yeah.
making sure that mom, we just recently had our claims, our supplement claims reviewed by an independent third party. They reviewed the science, and it's what it's called is competent and reliable scientific evidence backs these claims. And so it's called CARS. And so one of those claims that came out from their review was that fatty 15 supports healthy pregnancy. So we were
Wow.
thrilled not just to say it's safe, but that it can support a healthy pregnancy. So we
Wow.
were
That's
thrilled that
amazing.
they came to that conclusion.
That's amazing. I'm sure with you're talking about the metabolic health and too, I'm sure it would help with, you know, reducing gestational diabetes, supporting the baby's growth, like all of that. Obviously, you can't say if that hasn't been studied, but I'm just saying, like, and where
You
my
didn't
brain is
ingest
going.
that. Yeah. No, Corinne, so there was a study done by Kaiser, led by Kaiser
Oh,
Permanente, and they showed that women who had higher C15, again, association, right? But
right.
women who had higher C15 had a lower risk of developing gestational diabetes. So there
Wow.
you go. You
Yeah.
already knew it.
Perfect. Okay, amazing. Okay, so then of course you would recommend really everybody take, like, everybody could benefit from this pretty much. Any age, every age, we're talking helping, you know, with IVF and men as well. Like this isn't just women, this would be helpful for men's health also.
That's right, and especially when we get to the older years and we're looking at cardiovascular health, heart health and
Mm,
metabolic health. That's what we call democratizing longevity, so that everyone has a right to live a long and healthy life.
right.
That was the foundation of a book I came out with in March of this year from Simon and Schuster called The Longevity Nutrient, and it goes into detail about all the different things that all the science. Again, these over 100 peer-reviewed papers, and it helps to break it down into different things that people might be interested in, so they could kind of go to, okay, I'm interested in heart health or liver health or pregnancies. They
Yeah.
can help find the science easily there.
Okay, so it is helpful. So for ladies, say we're talking like people listening, maybe like our parents and stuff, it is helpful for like cardiovascular health, liver health, dementia, that as well, or Alzheimer's.
There's new studies. We just published a study in May of this last year. And what was really interesting, what led that study was really interesting discovery by us and others that dolphins specifically develop the full suite of changes consistent with Alzheimer's. And so that full suite of changes is meaningful because it's only been found in cetaceans, which include dolphins, right, and whales,
Right.
and primates, which are obviously humans and monkeys. And
Yes.
they're the only two groups that develop this a very specific phenotype of Alzheimer's.
Wow.
So that became interesting, obviously for us to help the dolphins, but also are there some insights we can gain on the human health side? And so we took C15 and we tested it against a bunch of different receptors relevant to cognitive health. And we published that work earlier this year showing that it helps to inhibit certain enzymes that chew up healthy molecules for our brain. And so by inhibiting those enzymes, it helps
Right.
keep healthier levels of dopamine, healthier levels of endocannabinoids in our brain to help with things in addition to cognition, like deeper sleep and calmer mood, which was kind of a mystery for us, Corinne, because we have a lot of our customers. Um, Half of our customers within 2 weeks, 70% of our customers within 16 weeks report feeling better. And some of the most common benefits reported were, I'm sleeping deeper, I have a calmer mood. And we're like, well, but it's not for it's not for that. And then
Yeah.
I experienced it myself. And
Yeah.
now we're learning, the science is catching up to help explain, oh, okay, this is how these benefits are being felt. So we're stay tuned for some clinical trials on that front.
Okay, yeah, I want to go back to that mood thing for a second, but first, with the, brain development, the Alzheimer's and all of that, is this more helpful for prevention, or if someone is already maybe experiencing early signs, like would this help slow down the process of them continuing dementia or like reverse it at all? Like, I don't know if you can say reverse it, but you know what I'm saying.
TBD, I don't want to. This is obviously a incredibly important topic, and so I don't want folks walking
Yeah.
away saying take C15 for Alzheimer's.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Of
Right
course.
there. So the research is early. It's encouraging.
Yeah.
We have customers that are older that are reporting that it's helping them feel better, which is
Yeah.
great. But
Memory.
definitely, we are kind of starting to set the stage. There was one study done on people with what's called type 3 diabetes, which is diabetes that is also associated with Alzheimer's. And it showed in that study that people with higher C15 were less likely to have cognitive decline. So they had better cognitive health with higher C15 association. But now that we're starting to understand some mechanisms of action, there might be, a good link there. But
Wow.
hopefully, we're inspiring researchers to,
Yeah.
lead the important studies needed to better
Yes.
understand the problem.
Because I've seen, links to like what you just said of like insulin resistance and dementia or Alzheimer's. So if this is helping with insulin sensitivity, then that could be helpful for like prevention and that link. Um, okay, amazing. So then talking about the mood and everything. So for someone who maybe has, depression or anxiety or a mood disorder, obviously this isn't like replacing any medications or whatever they're on, but would this be helpful for someone who, might be experiencing more of those, mood instabilities?
Yeah. So current studies support that a few important things. One is that C15 has what's called a cell-based phenotypic profile. And this involves thousands of measurements of what C15 does at different doses across multiple human cell systems mimicking various disease states. And this is done by a third party. And what they showed is that C15 at lower doses actually mimics certain antidepressants, which is
Wow.
interesting. So what does that tell us? It tells us that the outcome of that study predicts that C15 may have some positive impact on mood. So that's kind of where that got us to that stage. There
Wow.
are now 2 or 3 epidemiological studies showing that people with higher C15 have lower anxiety. And so that's encouraging. And then there's a clinical trial results that just came out, and it's called a post hoc analysis. So they do a clinical trial with C15 supplementation and they have their initial outcomes, which was women who were overweight and had fatty liver disease. But then they do a secondary analysis later. And so they did an analysis in which they collected data on women's anxiety during the study. And they showed that in multiple study groups, and all the study groups' anxiety went down because all the study groups involved weight loss, which is great.
Yeah.
There was the one that was on the C15 supplementation group had the greatest decline, the most significant decline in anxiety. But it's more like, that's interesting. More work should be done to focus solely on this anxiety part. So encouraging, and again, this is something we hear a lot from our customers. But we always encourage people, work with your doctor, and try and see if that supplement is if C15 is having that type of benefit for you.
Yeah, and I mean, when it looks more into the gut health stuff too, there's such a connection with, your gut and your brain are directly connected. So if this is helping, rebuild those cell membranes in your gut lining, I would, of course, it's going to help your mood, right? Like, because when your gut health is better, your mood is better, right? So it just makes sense when you're putting all the pieces, together with or without the studies. It's just like, well, if there's studies showing that it improves your gut lining, it's of course going to improve your mood. So that all makes sense to me.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, we're learning more, and some of the urgency behind this is really looking at benefits are fantastic, and studies are continuing to be good. At some point, it starts sounding too good to be true, right? Because it's like, okay, gut, and then we talk about mood, and we talk about also, but as an essential nutrient that our bodies need. This is what essential nutrients do, lots of things. So it helps to understand the broad benefits, and some of our urgency, Corinne, about, education and, and with regard to the book was to talk about deficiencies. And so what happens if we have, generations born into a C15 deficient world? Could that be part of the explanation for the rise we're seeing in things like, gut issues and mood disorders and metabolic concerns? So are we aging faster than we should because we don't have enough C15? So we're working with leaders in the world to better understand what C15 levels our cells need, which now we're understanding is this 0.2%. There's a test available today that people can test their C15 levels. And as we've worked with physicians, they're shocked at how many people are low in C15. So this is something that we can actually have an impact. You can get a test, and then you can take C15, get your levels back up, and then also be able to see clinically meaningful benefits, which is the most important outcome, right? That you feel better.
Yeah. I feel like, how could it not help everything? Everything in your body's connected. If it's supporting a cell membrane, it's like, well, I feel like it's going to just somewhat, maybe it might have more benefits in some areas, but I feel like it's just going to be helpful for everything. I've definitely noticed skin improvements. I feel like since taking it, I feel like my skin is just more glowy, it's nicer. More even, more moisturized. I don't know. I've definitely noticed that for sure. And I know that's something that there's definitely connections with that, clinical trials on that as well, right?
That's right. So there was a clinical trial that came out earlier, and it was looking at a high C15 content supplement in another country, and they showed, and it was a controlled, placebo-controlled clinical trial, and it was specifically looking at women, older women with sagging faces, and so they were able to measure, able to measure things like collagen and elasticity, and exactly like you said, moisture content, right? And so, and it showed that all three measurements they used in that study, that within 12 weeks on this higher C15 content supplement, that they saw improvement in all of three of those skin. So it's not surprising you're seeing that benefit. And again, just like you said so well, Corinne, which is we're made of cells. It helps our cells be more stable. And so it's helps in all areas because we're made of cells.
Right. Yeah. So it's like, what isn't it going to help? I love this. And so you were saying before that your claims on Fatty 15 were just like reviewed again and supports a healthy pregnancy is one of them. What were the other ones on there that are, now reviewed and not now reviewed, but reviewed again,
Yeah.
I should say.
Right. So they, as you can imagine, with 100 peer-reviewed studies, it's going to take some time. So
Okay. So the
they've done
highlights.
they've done their first sweep. So we're like, let's do it in tranches.
Okay.
And so they reviewed 25 papers, and then based upon that, there were 26 claims, which is
Wow.
amazing. So anything you see with regard to on our website, in our communications, all of those are what's called CARS, claims that have been identified by a third party as competent and reliable scientific evidence backed. So even things like reversing aging at the cellular level and slowing cellular aging, even those claims pass the muster of this third party reviewer. And it's just, there's such
Amazing.
extensive, robust science out on C15. And then has 36 cellular benefits that support metabolic, liver, cognitive, red blood cell, and immune health. So, and supports long-term health, supports pregnancy. So all
Wow.
of these, it's an impressively long list. But again, it
Yeah.
just speaks to it's really been a decade of science that's out there, and now people are feeling and seeing the benefits as we
Yeah.
know.
Wow, that's amazing. And not all supplement companies have to go through that, right? Like some people could put claims on their supplement and it doesn't actually do that.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, it's the supplement industry has earned the skepticism that people have around it.
Right.
And, so we've always chosen, we come from more of a pharmaceutical like background of just
Mhm.
training of how you look at things. And I think the more we turn the direction, the way that we assess pharmaceuticals, if we can be looking at nutrients that way, will be more powerful. I know that's part of your strong messaging is understanding nutrients that can be very powerful and
Yeah.
helpful for us, most importantly in preventing disease and protecting our health.
Yeah.
Right. And so let's do that. And the more we can focus these advanced technologies that have been traditionally used for pharmaceuticals to look at nutrients, all of a
Mm.
sudden we're realizing we're surrounded in nature by very effective and importantly safe molecules that we were meant to have. So I think C15 is going to just be the first of many, now that these technologies are being used to understand our food.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, that's amazing. Okay, so talk to us about, like Fatty 15, obviously everybody should take it. This is your supplement with C15 in it. They're super tiny, super easy to take. Like I love them. And there's like a lot in one bottle. Like it lasts a while. Because you only need one little capsule, which is amazing. So people are like, "Oh, I don't like swallowing pills." Like it's so small. It's really tiny.
It is tiny. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like you don't even know you're taking it. We also mentioned your book, so talk to us about that. And Fatty 15. How many like 1 to 2 capsules? I think you said, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Navy funded us to develop a pure, free fatty acid, bioavailable C15 ingredient. And they
Mm.
initially did this to be a supplement for the dolphins
Oh my
because
God, they
we
love
were
the.
finding, yeah, and it was getting harder for them to find fish that had enough fat that were fatty enough to
Wow.
contain C15. So we can't help the wild dolphins on that front, but we are able
Oh,
to help the Navy dolphins. So
yeah.
they said we would really like, because getting C15 from the diet was becoming more unreliable. So they wanted to have a reliable way to get C15 as a supplement to the dolphins. So
So
they
cute.
funded us to develop this ingredient,
I
and
love it.
we went we went with the highest bar, like we always do. You don't need to get these CARS claims, but we did it. You don't need to get grass safety for supplements, and we did that. It's just
Yeah,
really
but
important for us, right, to
yeah.
pull the highest bar. So when the Navy funded us to develop the supplement, we use the highest bar, which is it's greater than 99% pure C15, so there aren't, contaminants, and you know that what you're putting in your body is the same molecule that's used in all of these studies that we talked about. And
And
it's
it's not a fish oil for people. Like, it's not like, people don't consume fish. Like, it's not fish, right? So I just want to because I remember when I first heard about it, I'm like, oh, is it just like a fish oil? But it's not that.
exactly. So it's what's great about it is, its job is to be a stable molecule that stabilizes our cell membranes. That also means it's stable in the bottle. So it's a
Yeah.
pure white powder.
Yeah.
So it doesn't need to be refrigerated. You don't need to worry about oxygen exposure. It doesn't go
So good.
rancid. It's just a really stable fatty acid that, again, doesn't smell, doesn't taste. Like you said, Corinne, it's this tiny amount.
Yeah.
And it's why 99% of our customers report that C15 fatty 15 has become part of their daily routine.
Oh,
It's
me
because
too.
it's so easy, right? It's so
Yeah.
easy to take. And then when you start feeling benefits or seeing benefits like you're seeing with the skin, then you stay honest. We have an over 95% retention rate.
Wow. That's
which is,
amazing.
yeah, it's unheard of for
That's
most supplements.
incredible.
So it's
Yeah.
just like that's why it's the sticking to the science and that
Yes.
is it pays off, right? Because then you're actually getting what
Fantastic.
the science supports.
Yeah. And oh shoot, I was just gonna ask a question about it. You said it's shelf stable. Um hmm. Oh, does it matter like what time of day if you take it with food, without food?
It most people take it like over 90% of people take it in the morning,
Yeah, with breakfast.
and that's when I take it. I take it with my
Yeah, me
coffee.
too. Yeah, okay.
There's some studies starting to show that if you if and this is in rodents, that if you give mice a high fat diet, their C15 levels will actually go down. And so they're trying to understand why that is. One hypothesis is that if there are too many other fats competing um, to be, absorbed, that the other fats might win. We
Mm,
did make this molecule to have higher absorption than even the C15 in foods, so
got it.
it shouldn't be a problem. But we're watching that carefully. So you should be able to take it any time of day. But I do take it in the morning with my coffee,
Okay.
without a meal, and
Food.
just
Okay.
let it get absorbed, let
Yeah,
it
yeah,
do
yeah,
its
let it
thing
do its thing.
before
Yeah.
I
And
go and eat anything big.
with that like hypothesis you talked about with too much fats and omegas, so say like we're also taking an omega, like DHA, EPA supplement or whatever, would we could we take less of that now that we're taking C15, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think we're going to learn that there is a balance
Right.
between C15 and omegas, but we don't know what that is yet.
Okay.
Omegas serve to help make our cell membranes more flexible,
Right.
which is really important. C15 helps make our membranes more stable. So it's
Okay.
finding out, I think a lot like, how there's an omega 6 to omega 3 ratio,
Right.
where we're trying to get less omega 6s, more omega 3s. We'll
Yeah.
probably be learning about a C15 to
Agree.
omega
Yeah.
ratio. But
Okay.
right now, if you like your omegas and you're doing great on them, keep doing what you're doing and add C15.
Yeah.
If some people have a hard time taking fish oil, I have a
Yeah.
hard time with the pill size
Yeah.
myself. Then fatty 15 provides great coverage, and then I eat fish.
Okay.
I do
Okay,
fish
got it. So you
eating.
get it from there. Okay, perfect. And then you also, anyone wants Fatty 15, we'll put the link in the show notes. And I have a 10% off code for them. They could use code Corinne Angelica to get 10% off, which I highly recommend. Obviously, everybody listening to this is now going to order it, and I'm so excited for them. I loved it. And I like wanted to try it and stuff for a little while first. So I've been like taking it for a bit because, like there's so many different supplements. I've tried so many different things. Some things I'm just like, like it's like cool, did it do anything? So I'm really excited about this one. And then your book you were talking about.
Yeah, so I have a weekly blog. So every Sunday there's a blog called, it's called Science Says. So if
Oh,
you go
cute.
on the website, you can sign up for the newsletter. But
Okay.
and so Simon and Schuster, they were reading. I didn't know it, but they have been reading the blog for a year. So they reached out
Wow.
and said, "This is a book. Like you should write." Because we had done I have a TED talk, and then the blogs, and so they said, we'd love for you, would you be interested in writing the book of the origin story and now all the science? And I said, but the
Wow.
science isn't done. And they're
Yeah.
like, yeah.
You
They're
can
like,
write
Steph,
another book.
they're like, it's never going to be like,
Right.
this is just starting. They're like, but there's so much, like most people have never even heard of C15.
Yeah.
And now there's over 100 peer-reviewed studies. So let's get started the awareness. And so I said, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So wrote the book, and it was with Simon and Schuster, available wherever books are sold. It's called
And what's the name of it?
The Longevity Nutrient.
Oh, I love that. Okay, awesome. Oh, I'm so excited.
Mhm.
And do you have a podcast or anything, or no, just your blog?
No, just blog. Yep, and then
Blog.
and then
Okay.
I'm old school, Corinne. You find me on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, you can find me.
LinkedIn. Okay, LinkedIn. More importantly, they just need to they can look at the book if they want, but they got all the information they needed from the podcast, and now they're just going to order the supplement. I'm so excited. And you could feel so confident knowing that, like, if you're pregnant, it's safe and beneficial, like breastfeeding, like this is so awesome. So thank you so much, Steph, for coming on the show and sharing this information. I'm really excited for my community to listen to this and for everyone to get on their Fatty 15. It's going to be so good.
Great. Thanks, Corinne. And I will mention, I did forget, if you go to discoverc15.com, that's where all the peer-reviewed literature is. And if you go to the resources page in the bottom, there's a whole section just on pregnancy and infant health. So you can read all the peer-reviewed papers on that. So discoverc15.com, where all the peer-reviewed papers are. It's been an absolute pleasure, Corinne, chatting with you.
Okay, we'll put that in the show notes too, so they can easily go check that out.
But thank you again, so Steph, much for being here. If you loved this episode and learned something valuable, please share it with a friend who you think would also love it, or post it on social media and tag me so I could personally say thank you for helping me spread this important message. I am beyond grateful to be here with you. So until next time, stay intentional, stay consistent, and always mind your hormones.